What's up, guys? This is Bryan Webster with Pirate Vibes. We're going to have a different show than we've ever had before. Pat's on his own. Tim's on his own. I'm on his own. It's the holidays. We're getting a little crazy. Pat is joined by Dave Popkin, the voice of Seton Hall basketball and radio. Tim's got a signed Mafia, and I got a little quick review for the Chargers. We're getting ready for Maui. Are you boarding the plane? But first, let's vibe. All right, my name is Bryan Webster. Welcome to the Big East Energy Network. We are sponsored by Osmosis Spice. Go to osmosisspice.com. Use promo code BIGENERGY15 and get 15% off your first order. All right, first thing first. Holiday week, kind of crazy. We're trying to piece it all together. We got a great episode for you. Dave Popkin is joined. He talks with Pat a little bit, previewing Maui a little bit. Tim's got his signed Mafia, everyone's favorite part. And then I'm going to do a quick review about the Chargers game because I'm from Connecticut, even though I'm a Seton Hall fan, so I got to talk about New Haven anyway. I grew up 15 minutes away. But first, we're going to kick it over to Patrick, who's with Dave Popkin, New Jersey Sportscaster of the Year, the longtime voice of the Seton Hall Pirates on the radio. Over to Patrick right after this.
Okay. This is Patrick Madden, your co-host on Pirate Vibes, and today we have the privilege of getting to talk to one of the voices of Seton Hall basketball. He's been doing radio for the Pirates for, I think it's 23 years. The one and only Dave Popkin. Dave, welcome to Pirate Vibes.
Thanks for having me. How you doing, Patrick?
Thank you, and thank you for coming in right off last night's game, the 68-45 win over New Haven. I joked before we started that there were some sleepy stretches during that game, particularly when the offense struggled. Just give me your overall impression. We're 5 games in. Seton Hall is 5-0. We can't take that for granted, given the history of Seton Hall. In fact, it's the first time they're 5-0 in the last 10 years. So give me your impressions as someone who's watched this team for decades and looking at the team we see on the court the last couple of weeks.
I think it was smart scheduling, first of all, that you get some mid-major teams in there, and Shaheen was able to play everybody, kind of see what he has, establish a rotation, who plays well together. I like the unselfishness with the team. You see a couple bad shots here and there, but they're college kids. They're not perfect. And, they're open for a second and they want to take their shot. But generally, they're sharing the ball. And that's hard to do in this era when they're getting paid and when they may only be here for a year, and what's their responsibility for winning. But I think that they feel the responsibility, and I think they have better athleticism, certainly better depth. I like having Tawan Simpkins come off the bench because then he can come in there against some second line players and really light it up. Had 18 in the last game. He's their leading scorer right now, even though he comes off the bench. He does play starter minutes. The luxury of having 2 and potentially 3 good big guys, basically 5 men, is something we haven't seen in quite a while for Seton Hall. And Stephon Payne has been a revelation, double-double in the last game. Really impressed by him, his footwork, able to score with both hands, block shots, just play within the flow and not demand the ball or anything. He just offensive rebounds, catches lobs. He could post up a little bit. And obviously Najai Hines is one of the better young big men in the Big East. At least it looks like so far. There are already Angel Delgado comparisons for him. Great hands. He wants to pass. I saw in the game a couple times last night, he had assists because the double team came on him and he was looking, and he's above everybody, so he can bounce a pass to somebody on the move toward the basket, and he's adept at that. He seems to have a nice touch around the basket. So I think that people have good reason to be optimistic about the team, but we'll see what happens as they play better competition.
Okay, and segueing to that, obviously, Seton Hall takes a huge step up next week You'll be out in Hawaii for the Maui Invitational. You'll be on the play-by-play call for those games. So our first opponent, obviously, is a team that's either in the top 25 or definitely in the top 25 conversation, coached by Will Wade in his first year at NC State. So I know, you're going to be going more in depth about NC State as you get ready for Monday's game. But give me some overall impressions of what you've seen score-wise and things like that.
Sure. They can score. They have some big NIL players like Darian Williams. He was an all Big 12 player at Texas Tech. He was their main target. They were really excited to get him, and he has delivered, scoring in the 20s, pretty much every game right now. Paul McNeil is a guy that they decided to keep. Their analytics showed that he was the third most productive player on the team, but he was underutilized last year when they flopped, right? They went from Final Four to 12 wins to now they seem like they're a pretty good, top 25 team. And McNeil is a reason for that. He's averaging almost 20 points per game, and they decided to give him a shot. That stat was according to internal data from NC State and a New York Times article yesterday. So Trey Holloman, they bring him in from Michigan State, winning player. He's scoring in the 20s often, very capable. I would guess that he's a big NIL guy to bring in. Matt Abel was a 5-star player that can shoot. They bring him off the bench. So they definitely have scoring options. I think where Seton Hall could get them sometimes is keeping them out of transition, where they get some easy baskets, and turning them over. VCU turned them over 17 times, I believe, the last game, and NC State had like 11 assists. So that's a bad ratio, and that helped VCU stay in that game. They almost won the game at NC State, frankly. It was very close. So we'll see. I mean, they're 23 in the Ken Pom for a reason. Obviously, they have a tough schedule, and that helps. But, they're undefeated coming in and have a coach that knows what he's doing. He's won postseason games at his last 3 stops. Obviously a winning coach.
Well, I mean, the job he just did at Nichols was phenomenal, given how McNeese, my mistake, Nichols, they're both in the same. The job he did at McNeese was phenomenal because you look at how far down McNeese was, and you infuse a Will Wade in that situation. They win 30 games each of his 2 seasons, and they do something that not many mid-majors unfortunately do nowadays, and that's win a game in the main draw in the main 64 draw of the NCAA tournament. The question is, how does this translate now to a major program in NC State, and a program that 2024 I think was a little bit of an anomaly for NC State. They just got hot at the right time and rode that all the way to the Final Four. So I think they were a little bit of an anomaly. They've been down in the ACC, but I think given the start that they're on and the fact that Will Wade's involved, they're going to be a player in the ACC for the next few years as long as Wade hangs around.
Yeah, no, I think so. And they've stepped up in terms of NIL. They have a huge alumni base down there. They have a gorgeous arena. They have all the pieces in place, right? They have a big-time coach. And they have good players, and that's the key, right? I mean, they have, guys, multiple guys that can go for 20 points a game, and it seems like they're pretty decent defensively as well. So, it would be a great win for the Pirates, but certainly not unheard of. NC State has not been tested that much except for the VCU game so far. So the whole tournament in Maui is like that. You get a team like Texas, right? They lost to Duke and they beat everybody else in their bye games. So you don't really know what they are. And that's the beauty of these tournaments. And that's why, a lot of people will sit around and watch 6 basketball games on Feast Week and try to see what's what, because more than ever, these teams are a mystery.
Right. And we get to the second game Seton Hall has to play, either against USC, who we remember that they played out in San Diego at the Ratty Invitational 2 years ago, and then or Boise State, who was unfortunately the butt of a lot of jokes in week 1 when they lost to Division II Hawaii Pacific. But then last night they turn around and they beat a pretty good Wichita State team. So any quick impressions about who Seton Hall would play in their second game on Tuesday?
It's hard to say. I mean, USC is a much better team in the Ken Palm. They're 18. They're the best team in the field at Maui. They have Chad Baker Mazzara, who's a veteran college basketball player, scoring almost 19 a game. A lot of options. I think similar to NC State, maybe better in that they have more scoring options. Rodney Rice, Ezra Osar, Jacob Kofi. They're averaging 98 points a game. So what gives, right? I mean, if you're Bill Parcells, you say that, defense always carries the day and you concentrate on your defense, the old Giant coach. And I think that in most sports, pitching and baseball, right? Basketball, defense travels. So if you can concentrate on the top player or two from any of these teams and keep them below their average and keep the game in check, all you need to do is make some threes and you have a good chance in that game. And Seton Hall did that in their last game. They had been, only knocking down 4, 5, 6 threes a game, which is hard to win against good teams. They had 8 in their last game. And that, if they can keep it in that range, maybe a little higher, mixed in with the rest of their offense, they can beat some of these teams. USC, undefeated, talented team, big money team. And that would be another great opportunity for them with like a 24-hour turnover. The way that this tournament lines up, you play 3 straight days. It's similar to the Big East tournament. So you could get 3 good teams in a row.
Right. And Boise's not a bad win to get either, because Boise's been a very good program in the 2020s. I think where they have 3 trips to the NCAA tournament. And that's obviously a level that Shaheen Holloway wants to get to. With this program. He would love to be as consistent in the NCAA tournament as Boise State has been over the last 5 years. So that's one that people may not be like, wow, we beat Boise State, but people in the know will know that Boise State win means something. And then unfortunately, there's the possibility that if things don't go well the first 2 days, you have to play Chaminade, which wouldn't count towards your net. Counts towards the record. It wouldn't be something, but one thing I've thought about is being competitive, looking good in the first 2 games of the 3 games you play out in Maui, because you're going to have a lot of eyeballs on you. ESPN's going to put the game on their main networks, and people still watch the Maui Invitational. We're going to talk a little bit in a second about where Maui stands in the grand scheme of Feast Week these days, given the introduction of the Players Era tournament. But I think to the people who really watch college basketball, they'll be watching the Maui Invitational.
There's no doubt. And I know that in the past, Seton Hall liked to play in ESPN tournaments in November because they didn't have ESPN exposure the rest of the year. So to the people that kind of just lean toward that for their college basketball, as opposed to FS1 or Peacock or the other networks, CBS Sports Network, that was important to them just to grab that audience. Now that they're also on ESPN to some extent, they're on ESPN Plus for a lot of these non-conference games. Maybe not, quite as important, but these games are going to be on like Mothership, ESPN, and ESPN2, that kind of thing. So it's a big deal. It's on in the middle of the afternoon during the week, and some people may not be off all of Thanksgiving week and be able to watch a basketball game at 2:30, but you could go back and watch it on ESPN Plus. So I think it's important to be in a representative field like this, a field that has top 50 Ken Palm teams. It doesn't have Duke and Houston, but I think it's still a strong field, great tournament. Seton Hall hasn't been to Maui in many years. To get invited, I think, is important, to keep the brand on the national stage. Obviously there are some other tournaments that are offering money to players, in NIL, arrangements. I don't know all the details of that. I'm not a big MTE guy on who gets what and what the schools make and the players make. But all I know is that this is one of the better tournaments, that Seton Hall has played in recent years, and it's a good opportunity.
Do you think the players era is taking away some of the luster of Maui, or is that more of a sort of a talking point that people say just sort of to stir up the pot a little bit?
I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, it's a glitzy site, in Vegas for it. I think, still having the games on ESPN with like Dan Schulman and Jay Billis and some of the brand names of college basketball, calling your games, I think perception wise, and the fact that the tournament has such great history in Maui, and such great visuals. And a good field. I think that it's all good. And how some of these other tournaments shake out, it remains to be seen.
Imagine Najee Hines doing the 40-foot, 94-foot walk with Jay Billis. That would be a scene.
Only take him a few steps. I mean, he's the X factor for this team. When he steps up and has a double-double and has 6 or 7 blocks, he's a dominating force, and it's hard for teams to drive the lane and score. And if you're going to rely on outside shooting, it's fickle, and there are games where if you play Hines 25 to 30 minutes and you play Payne the other minutes and teams can't take it down the lane and their shots are being altered and they're having to kick it out and use more shot clock. We've seen a lot of shot clock violations this year against Seton Hall. And Seton Hall was number 1 in the country going into last night's game in shot blocks. So that is an equalizer that makes it hard for teams to score. And I think that getting Hines, a 4-star player of the year in New Jersey, is a huge get for Seton Hall and another good reason to be excited because he'll keep you in games.
Okay, well, we thank you for your time. We know your time is precious, Dave, but you are the man regarding Seton Hall basketball. You've been here longer than anybody else, and have a nice trip to Maui.
Yeah, well, Gary's been here for 23 years too, and we've had a great time and a great relationship, and he's taken this one off. But Matt Ambrose, who's the new Seton Hall Sports Information Director and has called the games on women's basketball on TV for the past several years, he's going to be my partner on the games. And we'll close for now and send it off to Tim Best and the Sign Mafia.
Thank you, Dave.
Pirate Nation, Tim Best here at the Real Timmy Ice. It's going to be weird to be doing this not with Brian's segue and intro that he normally does, but here goes. Put a lot of thought into this following the victory against New Haven on Tuesday, and I hope you all appreciate the puns here. But Maui Wowie, we're going to Hawaii 5-0, or in this case, 5-0. So, Maui Wowie, I got that from as a wrestling fan. I was a big fan of Bray Wyatt, and one of his catchphrases at the end of his career, because of the Firefly Funhouse, was Yowie Wowie. So Maui Wowie, I just been thinking about that honestly for the last week. So it was an easy call for that first part, but to tie in Hawaii 5-0, to go to Hawaii 5-0. This is something that the Pirates haven't done since my freshman year at Seton Hall, which is starting the season 5-0. That year they started 7-0, which included winning if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's now defunct, but they won the Paradise Jam down in the Virgin Islands against a rather weak slate of teams, which I believe it was Nevada, Gardner-Webb, and Illinois State. I recently saw an article saying that the Maui Invitational is dying. Given this year's field, not a lot of headliners. I get it. But it's still the Maui Invitational. It is the most well-known and prestigious non-conference tournament in all of college basketball. I will say, though, quick shout out, rest in peace to the Great Alaska Shootout. bring it back. Hurley Mania and Hot Balls, I know you're listening out there. So, for this team to be going 5-0, this is what I expected, but the fact that we actually did it, I think shows that the culture and the vibe, fire vibes here, it's a hell of a lot different. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say it, but third in scoring defense in the country, the best 2-point percentage opposing in the country, just to name a couple incredible stats. And now they're number 2 in the country in blocks. They were number 1, but bit of a down performance against New Haven, dropping down to number 2, but still really good position to be in. But now, big opportunity awaits against an NC State team to start this tournament that is now ranked at number 25. I don't foresee anyone moving into the top 25 that would steal their spot. So for this Seton Hall team to make a statement in Maui, to make another wrestling reference here, don't turn your back on the Wolfpack, or you might end up in a body bag, because this NC State team, as you probably heard, is a really good squad, as you've heard on this episode. So, like I said, don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. You got to make a statement. You cannot let NC State get off to a great start, because we all know what they have at their disposal on the offensive end of the court. So if they can upset NC State, this will prove Seton Hall this year is actually for real. But overall, the goal is to go at least 2-1. If they can avoid Chaminade, great. But I think that's number 1. And number 2, go over 500, win 2 out of 3 to come back to New Jersey with just 1 loss on the resume going into your final 3 non-conference games, which Central Connecticut State, bye game at Walsh. But after that, getting 2 Power 4 opponents. Kansas State in the Little Apple. And then, of course, the Guard State Hardwood Classic against Rutgers at the Rock. So that's all I got for the Sign Mafia segment for the week. Hooks up. See you next week.
All right, we're alone, right? Everyone's got their solo. Obviously, Pat did a great job in his first interview with Dave Popkin. Tim does, great Tim best things, maybe the best things with his Sign Mafia. I'm going to do a little trash treasure. This is a segment that I like to a little talk about the commentary. The biggest thing here is everyone's looked at, obviously, the 68-45. It wasn't pretty over New Haven on Tuesday. It wasn't the prettiest game, right? But they're 5-0 for the first time in over a decade. They're holding opponents, and they're scoring over 68 points at a higher rate than they've ever done in a long time. This team has figured out ways to win, which was one of the things that we couldn't do last year. We would have this team, we'd play a lot of close games, and then all of a sudden it would get out of hand and we can't recover for it. Here, we're able to recover from it. Bud Clark didn't have a great game, right? But don't worry, Simpkins there. Payne has a double-double. Obviously, Hines a little beat up with a groin injury. Don't worry, we got Payne. The one thing I want to talk about, trash to treasure. People love the block shot number. They love that block shot number. But after the Monmouth game, and if you heard the whispers and you listened to the press conferences, Shaw basically said, yeah, blocks are nice. Everyone likes it. It's the ooh moment, right? But it was keeping the bigs out of position, right? They were getting out of position and giving up second chance points. It's evident, right? Monmouth had 15 second chance points. New Haven only had 6. Yes, I know New Haven's probably a smaller team, but at the end of the day, we had less block shots. Seton Hall had less block shots. They gave up less offensive rebounds. They out-rebounded at a higher rate. I'll take it. We don't need to be number 1 in shot blocking. We just need a presence down there. And I think between Hines and Payne, and hopefully God's will and Sumanek, when they come on board and they get healthy, that people fear going to the rim, because they could get their shot blocked, but we're not just going to block shots because they're there. That's the biggest thing. If it's happening upon you and you're defending and your block shot, that's fine. But if you're going for the block shot and you're out of position for an offensive rebound, especially when Seton Hall is kind of a smaller team, right? Especially when you have a guy like Bud Clark out there who's 6 feet tall. Trey Parker's 6'1", 6'2". Simpkins, even though he's not super small, he's not the biggest guy. We need our big bodies. We need them to grab rebounds. So I think the biggest thing we learned from the New Haven game is, well, there's a couple things. The treasure part is that it seemed like we figured out how to win. It seemed like we figured out how to put 40 minutes together, just enough to take care of it. Our defense obviously was solid, right? You give up 45 points in any college basketball game, you're doing pretty good. And they're scoring at 68. Last year, we averaged less than 68. This year, we've scored 68 in every game. We're 5-0, heading to Maui. We got a big opportunity in Maui. Take on NC State. Tim just talked about it. This is a big moment. Dave Popkin talked about it with Patrick. But I really want to watch the post guys in Maui. Are they going for the ooh moments? Or are they playing solid basketball? I love Stephon Payne. He probably might be my favorite player right now because he's consistent. He gives you that toughness. He's just my type of guy, right? Is he putting up a double-double like he did against New Haven? Is he playing solid defense, getting the offensive rebounds? Or is he going for 5 blocks? If it's there, take it. No one's going to stop you. If you're guarding the guy and the guy goes up and you just go like this, that's fine. But when you're coming over, Simpkins is guarding someone's driving the lane, you're coming over to swat. I don't know if that's a great play, especially for a smaller team like this. We all love Elijah Fisher, right? But he's not Dennis Rodman, even though he's 6'8". Like, he's not Dennis Rodman where he's just going to grab every rebound. You can't put that on him because now we got Najee Hine going to the rim. We need those big bodies to grab rebounds. Shot focused on it. They executed. That is the treasure. That is the solid treasure for the Seton Hall Pirates. All right, that was the latest edition of Pirate Vibes. Hopes you like this. Leave a comment, subscribe, share. Please share. If you leave a comment, we'll be sure to read it on air. Next episode, next time we get together. Thanksgiving is going to give us a lot of hectic. We got a huge guest next week. One of the women's players is joining us next week. Cam Rust, I'll give it away, is joining Patrick. Patrick did an interview. It seems like Patrick's our interview guy now. And we'll be talking women's basketball. Of course, they're undefeated. There's only 2 schools, or there's only 1 school now after UConn lost tonight that is undefeated in the men and the women. And we're going to hold that as long as we possibly can. And who would have thought it was Seton Hall? But anyways, this is Pirate Vibes. I'm Bryan Webster, Tim Best, Dave Popkin, Patrick Madden. Stay true, stay blue, and vibe on.
Ahoy there! Ahoy, me hearties!